week, we're talking about Across the Spiderverse, Gold Rush, and Mike's got a new Blackberry. And now your host, Mike Indeglio.
What's up, team? Welcome back. Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just a sneak peek at two geeks chatting about some of the things that are getting them through their week. We welcome you back to the show. We took some time to let Keith heal up with his new bionic lower regions. It was also Memorial Day, so we had memorialing to do and burgers to eat.
It was my lower regions, not my nether regions, folks.
Well, they're intrinsically tied. Some would say.
I mean, they are adjacent. They are. It is nether region adjacent.
No, you got lots of well wishes from the community at large, Keith. Hopefully, you're feeling better. You look better.
No, I very much appreciate everybody's support. I'm doing great. Healing up pretty well. I'm now just about 2 weeks. 2 weeks after the glue's starting to come off.
How's the lifting? How's the lift? Oh.
Well, I'm not supposed to lift anything over 20 pounds for like 6 weeks or some nonsense like that. So and hey, everyone should be proud of me. I'm actually like sticking to that. I'm being diligent about not overdoing it, which is not in my character or my family's character. But here I am. Like Jillian picked up the cat litter from Costco because it was too heavy. I don't know, so I was very proud of myself. So
I just picked up some cat litter yesterday, and that stuff is heavy because it's definitely not. Oh my God, we should just do a cat podcast if we should just really.
100%.
That stuff is not cost effective at its lower weights. You have to get into like the 30, 40 pound bag before you're getting your money.
Yeah, and the Costco thing is like 42 pounds, and like that's more than twice what I'm allowed to lift right now. But that's all right. Being responsible.
We're having an issue with one of the cats. I'm going to open the show. I'm going to come in hot here, Keith.
Oh, here we go.
So my little. He's not a kitten anymore, but my little guy Tuxie is who you've seen on the show.
Not so little anymore.
Yeah, not so little. But he's having like an issue, right? So all of my other cats are pretty short-haired, and so is he, but he has quite a bit of growth in the nether regions.
In the nether regions,
yeah.
Sure.
And so he's not one for like grooming and stuff, so it's just like kind of a mess
like a dude.
There. Yeah. So he gets some residue like caught into that area, and his solution is to just do the good old dog butt scoot, which I've really never seen a cat do before. But I should say that in my rental apartment here, I have white carpets.
You do, yeah.
And I've been finding like long trails of just scoot residue. And
wow, what a way to begin my Monday morning.
But so, I learned like our first month here, Jen spilled a full glass of red wine on our white carpet. And so I quickly Googled, how do you deal with this? And apparently the blotting method is very good. So Keith, here I am yesterday. Jen's coming home for the couple days, and I'm on my hands and knees, paper towels, napkins, whatever I can find, just poop dabbing. Poop blotting, and I kept thinking to myself, I was like, this is what my life's become.
This is cat dad. I mean, hey, look, Tuxie's a little long. Have you seen Charlie?
Yeah,
Charlie is a full long-haired cat, and
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's an issue. Happily, he does not scoot. We need to, the not a sponsor yet, Manscaped.
Oh yeah,
can help you tidy up your nether regions. We need a cat manscape. Catscape. We need a catscape. Somebody invent that.
Anyway, so we got some stuff to talk about this week. We're so glad to be back. And is there anything major we wanted to? Oh yeah, the writer strike's still going on.
Yeah,
there's still stuff happening. There's words on the street that some of the other unions are going to get involved. The Directors Guild as well as SAG-AFTRA most likely. Because there's been really no movement.
Yeah, this one's going to be a long one, I think. Yeah, I think it's because this is like an inflection point, not about like we want 20% more. This is like existential inflection at this point. So
there's also a lot of television right now that's wrapping up. So Barry, which is a fan favorite, just finished its series run that happened 2 weeks ago. I'm not caught up, so we're not going to talk about that. Succession. Which is being heralded by all as one of the greatest television shows ever made, and I just started. Do you watch it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, we just started the journey.
I plan to.
We just started the journey. We're 4 episodes in, and everybody I've talked to is like, the first season, don't judge by the first season, it's slow. I think the first season pretty awesome. So it is, bite your tongue, because it's just mean white people being mean. It's mean white people.
Rich white people. Yeah.
But the writing is great, and the performances are great, and the filming is cool. So I'm excited to talk about that. But Keith, I want to jump right in.
But wait, no. We should say one more thing.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Pride Month.
Yes, it is.
So a happy Pride to everybody. I got some incredibly cute pictures of my nephew and my brother, who's his father, and going with Grandma and Grandpa to Essex, Vermont Pride.
Awesome.
It was really cute. Had the whole family like sitting there watching, like whatever the show was, and I was like, this is like the most wholesome picture I've ever seen. So happy Pride, everybody. This is a time where people in that community are kind of under threat, and it is sort of important, more as important now as it's ever been. So we stand with you, and we're proud to be friends of the community.
And I have to say, find, if you need to, the least you can do. I'll tell you, here in my community, it's not, I wouldn't call it a conservative area, but it's not as liberal as I'm used to in New York, socially liberal as I'm used to in the city. And so it's harder to find, it's not, that community and that kind of community support is not just ubiquitous, So it was pretty cool driving down the way. There is a local Starbucks, and I know you think Starbucks, mega chain, but they have their own kind of fingerprints and their own, franchise vibes. And the Starbucks over here emits this kind of, it's Pennsylvania, so it's purple, amidst this purple area.
Amidst.
Yeah.
I thought it was emitting a mist.
No, there is this Starbucks. It's just like pride flags flapping in the breeze. They got their whole window painted, the rainbow. And I was like, going to this Starbucks. And the staff was doing all kinds of cool stuff in there. They had all these, they were having like in the vibe of the drag show reading library vibe. They had all these inclusive coloring books laid out all and over the tables for the kids to color. And so it's just
fun.
A lot of cool stuff happening and activities in this local Starbucks. So I'm like, I'm going to this Starbucks. So find your way to contribute to in your local place.
And I know that people are watching this from all over the country and all over the world. Not very many of them, but they are spread all over the place. And understanding that it is not that way in a lot of places in the country, and for those places where that's not happening and it's not safe and your rights are not being protected, we stand with you and we wish you the best, and we've got your back in whatever way we can. And worst case scenario, go to Vermont, where the Essex Vermont. It's a by the national standards, a tiny little town in Vermont, and they had their little Pride festival there, and got over 1,000 people, which for Vermont is giant. And it was so over. They had so many more people than they expected. All the food trucks ran out of food.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
So next year, bigger. Time to go to the fairgrounds, folks.
So, guys, it's the summer. The pool's open. The movies are popping right now. And I went to the movie theater this week, and people are going to the movies. And it's both a little, for those of us who are like, I know I've been a little bit more going out a little bit more than you, Keith, so I'm a little bit more comfortable, but yet still packed places still give me the kind of, I got some triggers. But along with that, there's a little excitement that there is a return taking place. I'm not discounting the dangers that are still real, the precautions you can and still and should take, but there is a social excitement. There, as much as I love watching my films here, there is something about going to the movies. There is an experience that can't be replicated. The group watch and also sound that just obliterates your human. And, you know, the picture that's 1,000 feet tall and all of those things. So anyway, you'll recall, longtime Geekly listeners, Keith's mom,
literally just my
yes,
mom,
will recall that my most anticipated movie of the summer is and was Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. Now, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was one of my favorite movies of a few years ago. And I talked about how it's the artwork, the animation was just incredible. The storytelling was great. The representation was great.
Good.
You saw it, yes.
Yeah, I did see it. I loved it.
So in the interim between then and now, I can't even remember when that came out. It feels like ages ago. Anything that took place before COVID feels like just forever ago. But animation Into the Spider-Verse has become sort of a foundation of a renaissance in an animation, whereas it used to be a race to photorealism. Right. Your Pixar's or your CGI or whatnot, or a replication of hand-drawn animation in the Disney vein. This Into the Spider-Verse gave courage and gave, I guess, carte blanche to animation to kind of do and be anything and be creative and get wacky and wild. And also, multiverse movies have sort of become flavor of the week. So,
right. And it was sort of the leading edge of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was right then, right before Marvel sort of did their whole Endgame scenario, and then we had one of my favorite movies of all time, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so the question then becomes, now that the things that this was the bleeding edge of and had the courage to do are sort of ubiquitous, can it meet itself where it was? Can it push forward even more? Will I like it as much? Will they play it safe? All of those questions come into play. Keith, I'm happy to report this movie is, in my humble opinion, an actual masterpiece.
Really?
So I really thought, I came home that night and I thought about sitting at my computer and actually writing a review to read on the show because I have so many specific thoughts. And then I realized that there are so many people on the internet who do this better, websites and such. This is a more casual conversation, so I'm not going to go and try to emulate that. If you are really interested, read some of the great writing that's been done. But I want to just capture a couple of reasons why I think this was so amazing. Number one, so on a macro level, comic books as an art form, I think, they got their start in a very pulpy manner. They were very pulpy and throwaway, and in the interim between the beginnings and the nows, it's become a beautiful, multifaceted, universal. I mean, yes, they started here, but now they are global, and they've become just a very pure art form on their own, storytelling medium on their own. In many ways, just like pop culture art, pop art, modern art.
For sure.
What we've done in the movies, at least over the past decade, 2 decades, is try to take that and say, okay, now, but what if that was real? But what if that was grounded in real life? See the MCU, and there's been some success in that area, and there's been some failures in that area. I mean, I think the Donner Superman films are highlights. The Nolan Batman films are highlights. Oh, Keith is on mute and talking on the side. Anyway, I'll continue to talk about it. So there are plenty of highlights and plenty of reasons why that works and why it's cool and it's a great experiment. But lost in that is the fact that these superhero stories are maybe best told in comic book form. So why not find a way to show a comic book on film? Instead of trying to bridge that gap, let's not bridge it at all. Let's use the strengths of comics on film.
That's a very interesting way to put that.
And no film has ever done that better than this one. I'll start from a purely aesthetic, visual standpoint. This is the most beautiful animation I've ever seen. That's including the Disney hand-drawn animations. That's including the most photorealistic Pixar you've ever seen, because they don't just use it as a visual device, it's a storytelling device. There's so much happening here, I can't even begin to describe it. Every character that appears on the screen, and there are hundreds of Easter eggs, thousands of Easter eggs for those of people who are really into Marvel or really into Spider-Man. I'm not nearly deep enough down that well to have caught all the Easter eggs, but still, they're never Easter eggs for just a goof. There's always a reason. And every time they decide to do a pull of a Spider-Man from a different universe or a different comic book, there's always a visual representation of that character from that comic, be it in art style or the way it's animated. So there could be times where three characters are on screen together being animated with a different visual style at different
three different ways.
At different frame rates, different dimensions. One might be 3D animated, the other is 2D animated, or pointillist, or watercolored. And it's the sheer audacity of even attempting
really cool.
that is incredible.
Yeah.
And there are entire universes that are painted in watercolor, and you could see where they'll choose to have characters be sort of statically animated. So it's not at 30, it's not at 24, it may be 15 frames per second or whatnot, whatever their style is. But as they're trying to and it's not just to be cool looking, there's an emotional scene happening. I'm trying to give anything away. And they'll have the watercolor, maybe there's something sad happening. And so the watercolor background will start to drip. The paint will start to drip. And it's everything, every animation decision or choice has a creative, visual, and emotional grounding and reason for existing. And they're all happening at the same time.
Well, it sounds like one of those like amazing intersections of inspiration and technology, where we're finally at the technological standpoint where you can literally do everything you can imagine.
Well, you'll recall, remember when I was kind of discussing avatars, the new avatars, sort of Cameron's attempt to use frame rates, at changing frame rates to tell, to help aid the narrative, and it jarred me. This does it very successfully. In animation,
it sounds like what Cameron was doing was like, okay, here comes cool action, not I'm supporting the emotional storytelling.
Well, I'm sure he would probably argue the opposite, but it wasn't effective for me. Here it's effective. So that's visually, I could go on and on and on. Literally every frame of this movie, print it, frame it, put it in the MoMA. It is that beautiful. Let's go to sound design. All the action sequences are incredible in a way that it harkens back to like 90s cartoons, the X-Men cartoon, where action was awesome. Anime, because you didn't have to have the close fight. You could use, boom, pow, like you could use text. You could use comic book frames where something's happening in the background, but in the foreground there's like static, cool hero, just images blown up out of proportion. It's really hard to describe with words. But on top of that, these cool action sequences, the needle drops, the sound design, multicultural sound design. There's like a Latin vibe to some of it. It's still hip hop in some ways. There are mashups. There are actual songs. It is so contemporary. It made me feel both included in this sort of very fresh, young vibe, but also feel very old in that I'm just not. I didn't recognize any of the music. It didn't matter though, because it was so cool and so exhilarating. And also they had opera pulls if it was appropriate to the epic scene. They had more laid back, like 70s vibe. It's just as specific yet hugely inclusive, broad musically as it is visually. It's unbelievable. And then on top of that, Keith, at its heart, it's a story about forging your own identity amidst people and society telling you what you should or can or can't be, as well as a story about parenthood and being the child of a parent. All of those things are happening in a movie. So those are like very general feelings. I just, my biggest thing is it was full of children. This theater was full of children. I'm thinking to myself in my grumpy way, man, they're going to ruin this for me.
They're going to ruin this children's movie for me, the 40-year-old man.
It's 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes. I mean, it's a long movie. And kids, kids are going to kid. Keith, this movie captivated. I looked around, people's jaws, kids, quiet, pin drop quiet, cheering at the places you should cheer. Just absolutely spellbinding. You could tell people realizing, oh, we're watching something great. Now, my one criticism, and it is what it is. What I didn't know going in is that there is a second part to this movie that's coming out in March, next March.
Oh, interesting.
So this is really kind of a two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really make that clear in the marketing. And so at the 2 hour and 15-minute mark, you're like, oh man, I really feel like the third act is going to have to be quick because
how are we going to
wrap this
off?
up?
Yeah.
And then the music starts to swell, and some of our protagonists are left in a precarious scenario. And you're like, holy crap, does this movie have the audacity? Are they going to end it here? And they do. And it is like a cliffhanger.
Well, but that is comic book. That's pulp. That is also representing its art form. So every G.I. Joe comic book I have right behind me ends in a cliffhanger.
I think that's a very salient point. And because the movie isn't far away, it's only 6 to 9 months away, I think that it's not like we're waiting years. And also I think there is a story, a contained story and ideas that are fully fleshed out in this. So it's just you don't want it to be over, which is, you could kind of say as a pro or a con. I just can't believe they were able to do it again. And it's just an incredible experience. And if you can get yourself to a movie theater, if you can see it on a huge screen with really good audio, I really recommend not waiting until this one comes on streaming. Try the first, and here's where American audiences are like, maybe they're not, the MCU hasn't ruined them, right? This Into the Spider-Verse opened at, I think their opening haul was about $33 million. That's nothing to sniff at, but it's not great. This movie opened at $137 million.
Wow.
On the opening weekend. So it quadrupled where it was. And
the first one was great.
It stands to be in the top 5 of the box office this summer, and that is pretty awesome. So support this film. There are some it's incredible in so many things. It's a high recommend. So that's Across the Spider-Verse, Keith. Let's pop to you. You've been watching something not this.
Yes. No. Yeah. So I have been. So recently, I mean, I'm assuming most people watching this are already sort of aware of this. Discovery Plus and HBO Max merged.
Yep.
So now we're all paying more for whatever, but we're getting more. And so I was not a Discovery Plus subscriber, and so when it merged, it gave me access to one of my old guilty favorites, the reality series Gold Rush.
This is older, right?
It's in its 11th or 12th season now, and it's had 100 different spinoffs. I'll never be able to watch all of it. And speaking of just a thing that you wouldn't expect me to be into. It's basically a reality series about gold miners in Alaska.
Hey,
I'm up. And so it's literally just following 3 different sets of miners setting up their wash plants and digging in dirt and washing the rocks to try to collect gold. And it is incredibly well put together, and it's incredibly compelling. There's a couple things about it. One, there are things that it makes me nervous about, right? I haven't looked up behind the scenes about this because it's reality TV, so who knows how much of this is actually real. It seems real-ish, I mean, it's obviously edited and put together in a way to make it compelling, but like it feels like roughly what's happening is what I'm seeing. Two, like God knows, these are like rough and tumble miners out in the middle of nowhere. Like I don't necessarily want to be Googling their political beliefs or this, that, the other thing.
Right.
So I'm not doing that. Three, they do address it a little bit, the environmental impact of this type of mining. But I don't really know enough about it to speak on it. They at least make a nod to, it is important that they put the land back as they found it once they're done sort of mining all of this stuff. But just from a pure entertainment standpoint, to just watch these guys, especially in the earlier seasons when they're really, really underdogs. It starts off following a group of folks who have never gold mined before. It was during the economic collapse in the like 0809, where they all quit their construction jobs and went up to Alaska to like chase their dreams mining gold. Well, as it turns out, they were wildly and hilariously incompetent. And we essentially, the show just like, you know what? We encountered some competent people. We're going to make the show about them. And it becomes about this guy in the center. His name is Parker Schnabel, who, when we begin the series, he's, I think, 14 years old.
Oh, really? That's cool.
And he's there with his grandpa, who's like 90 something, and he encounters our crew. And then over the subsequent 12 years that this thing has been happening, Parker he strikes out on his own and starts his own claim, and now is like he's probably 24. He has a gigantic mining operation pulling in millions of dollars in gold.
Good for you, Parker.
Yeah, and Schneebling, yes.
Ned Schneebling.
Yes, but his relationship with his grandfather was really sweet, and it's kind of cool, they find these people out there who are just like absolute lunatic. Tony Beats, the guy with the beard, reminds me so much of my father. My father is not an asshole like Tony Beats is, but there's a certain like aesthetic of like, I just hit it with something. I don't care if it does, just like it's all going to fall apart. And so there's endless sort of calamities, and the machinery breaks down, and they're moving big stuff around, and it taps into that like dude who grew up in the woods part of me that really enjoys watching them, beat on heavy machinery. But there's also just the excitement. Every episode ends with each of the teams like weighing their gold. How much money did they make? Did they lose a ton of money? And like, yes, they're bringing in a lot of money, but the economics of it, they have to like put out $2 million at the beginning of a season just to get set up and pay for the mining rights and get the equipment, which is always breaking. And then you have to like, as the season goes on, are they going to be able to survive? Right. Are they going to make it? It's really well written television, and it's good fun. So if that sounds like something you might enjoy, you can check out the entire run of the series on Max. It's not HBO Max, it's just Max. It's something completely different from the usual stuff.
Did they bring over the entire Discovery Plus catalog?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, that's
or at least a very large portion of it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's a great like second screen.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I can watch it while I'm working or whatever, and you become invested in these lunatics up in Alaska, just barely hanging on, pulling in gold.
That's cool.
So yeah, so
who
knows?
Stuff, like I like Pickers, and there's a bunch of those that are oddly compelling. I think casting is a huge part of that because some of these people are really fascinating, and it's also tricky because, like you said, some turn out to be a little bit more problematic than others. So
yeah, and and I don't know. I hope not. I hope they're not that problematic. They're certainly portrayed relatively well on the show, but I mean, Lord knows, of course, that's what it is. But I think the production team of this has been very smart about following where the story is. So like both actually all three of the main people who are doing it now came on as like secondary people, and the show sort of ended up following them, and who are now like the main stars of the show. So anyway, good fun, completely different. If you wanted just like a little palate cleanser from all the geeky stuff, go watch some Gold Rush. It's probably all fake, and they're probably all problematic and horrible, and I'm going to find out like, oh god, I should be terrible. for watching this, but you know what? I watch it and I enjoy it. So there you go.
Lastly, I just want to quickly mention I watched a movie.
You got a new Blackberry.
I got a new Blackberry. You know, I never had a Blackberry. Did you have a Blackberry?
No.
I jumped right through from my like Cricket flip phone, Nokia flip phone, to the iPhone 1, which is...
I had a Flippy, yeah. I had a Flippy with a keyboard, but it was not a Blackberry.
I worked for a company quickly that they wanted us to have Palm Pilots, but I left that job and then went right to the iPhone, which is interesting because it dovetails with this movie. So Blackberry is a 2023 Canadian movie. And Canada's cool because they like help subsidize a lot of their films and things. So this is a Canadian biographical comedy drama about the history of Blackberry, and it's directed by Matt Johnson, and it's got some really great performances by Glenn Howerton, who's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, in a completely kind of different role for him, and what's his name? Jay Brockell. You can. That's the guy on the left there. I can't remember. I forget how you pronounce his name. You know him from a lot of stuff. He's a comedian. You know
Jay
him from a lot of stuff. Yeah, and it was really interesting because I had heard that this movie was good. It's a kind of an indie darling, and I had to go to an indie movie theater to see it, and I had to kind of research some ones. But I was able to actually, a friend of mine was able to get me a screener and an Academy screener, so I was able to check it out. But it is coming to VOD in the next week or two. It might be already out by the time this podcast airs, so you could probably find it, and it will be available. And it's really interesting. I knew nothing of this story, and it's in the vein of your Social Network, or that movie just came out that's about the dramatization of the Theranos thing. You know, there's people are into like corporate stuff. Oh, that movie just came out about the Nike shoes, Air.
Oh, yeah. I
Just
mean,
like-
basically it's the same thing as Succession, like rich white people behaving
like
badly.
business deals,
It's a whole genre.
Yeah, and these were like kind of underdog dudes who became a huge success, and then in literally no time at all, they went from 40% market share of phones to 0 in like that, because Apple just ate their face. And it kind of it dramatizes a lot of it. Some of the reasons like they came up with their name and different things seem to strain a little credulity, but it seems to me like it is how it happened. So it's a fast watch. The performances are absolutely astounding, really great. It is funny. This is one of those experiences, though, if I'm being honest, I would have rather watched the documentary. It's interesting enough and smart enough that I would have liked the 3-4 part documentary where we kind of got to see.
Well, it's probably coming. They always come in bundles.
Yeah, that's
like
a good
this.
point. Because truth be told, it felt a little short, and it felt like we took giant leaps in time where stuff must have happened, and it just all felt kind of glanced through. And yeah, but I want to support them because it's clearly sort of a really low budget indie thing, and there's so much hockey in this, Keith. There's so many like analogies of hockey, so I know it's right up your alley.
Well, and one of the things that I love most about Jay Baruchel's work is Goon, and its sequel. Well, like fantastic movie. Go watch it.
So like, not to give too much away, but the guy in the foreground here, Jim, he became their CEO, and he was able to poach a bunch of engineers from Google, Microsoft, Intel by illegally giving them backdated stock options to offer them just like $10 million in stock that wasn't really, it was all inflated, so it was all BS. And then his kind of hubris led him, he tried to buy the Pittsburgh Penguins and move them to Canada.
Oh, jeez.
So it was like all kinds of crazy stuff happening. And then the NHL owners were like, no, they shut it down. It was all this kind of cool stuff I didn't know was happening.
Great stories about NHL shenanigans.
Yeah, so it's a cool movie. It's definitely it's a breezy watch. I hope, I'm waiting for the docuseries, like I said. So yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
All right.
Next week we'll talk about, I started watching, there's a 30 for 30 on the American Gladiators that I'm really interested in. So, but you never watched, I learned this week, Keith, that
Yeah.
you never watched American Gladiators, which is
It was on NBC. Didn't get NBC.
a staple of 90s early reality television that is just batshit. You got to watch.
I couldn't watch NBC. There was a mountain in the way between us and
Guess
the
what? American
transmitter.
Gladiators is available to stream, and it's available on Tubi and Pluto TV and all those free things. You got to watch some American Gladiators, Keith. It is
Blueby and Bloppy.
it is so Keith Varney. It's like
American Gladiators.
yeah, because it's pro wrestling and
Right.
Sports and competition and reality shows and 90s. It's very Keith Varney. American Gladiators, high recommend. And also, you never saw, speaking of the early 90s, you never saw The Little Mermaid.
Never saw it.
To this day, you've never seen The Little Mermaid.
Never seen it.
That
I saw the Broadway. I saw the
That is
Broadway
an
production, of
outrage.
course.
It's not. I can't stand. It can't stand.
It was. We had Mike
It
and I
has
had a
the
long text thread about this.
prototypical. It is the definition of the "I Want" song. That movie is it.
No, I respect it very much. I mean, I'm familiar with it from the musical. I saw that, of course, and like I'm aware of it. I know the score. I know the pieces of it, but it never like came across. Like we were renting Neverending Story. We wanted like some like dark German existential children's movies, and we didn't like the Disney, like the Lion King and the Beauty and the Beast and all those. And Aladdin, I think we saw Aladdin in the theaters, but the rest of it, like, it just wasn't really my jam. Like,
Wow.
So I saw them at like friends' houses, and we never watched Little Mermaid.
Oh God, American Idol, American Gladiators, and The Little Mermaid. Keith has never seen. Okay, well, you know what?
Just because Ariel in a towel was your first love does not mean
My mom still got that towel. Keith, I also wanted to mention
still in rotation,
a story
baby.
for another time, but for a brief period of time, for about a month, I dated a girl, and remember we were sitting at, what was that, like, pasta place over by your old apartment?
Oh,
The brick, it was like all brick exterior.
Oh, I think it's the brick.
The brick, yeah.
The brick.
The brick. We were eating there one time, and we were kind of like chatting, and it was early days. We didn't date for very long. It was like a Match.com scenario, and it just didn't work out.
Right.
But I was like, "What do your parents do?" She's like, "They're Alaskan gold miners."
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. Quickly, do you have a weekly rad?
Weekly rad. Yeah. Well, I will say this for coming out of my surgery. My weekly rad was how well I was taken care of and my doctor surgeon was excellent. I heard that we talked after the surgery, but I don't remember it. But the nursing staff and at the I should actually look up what the whatever. But anyway, here in New Jersey, I was really pleased by how professional and how supportive and how like not awful and scary as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
That it was my first surgery, so I'd never been through that, never gone through that, and it's intense. It's kind of scary and exposing and weird, and but everybody there was really kind and really supportive, and made that experience much less awful than it could have been. So that I appreciate. Our healthcare system is wildly broken and messed up, and the surgery ended up costing me about $2,000, even though I'm paying $500 a month for insurance, because our system is messed up. But the people doing it, from the nurses to the techs to the orderlies, whatever, they were excellent, and I really appreciated the care they took of this poor guy.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, I've been. I think it's cool. It's scary. We've talked about AI. There's so much scary stuff. But, for work recently, we're being not forced, that's the wrong word. We're exploring a lot of different voice AI, digital AI, systems AI, different AIs across our suite of needs. And I'm lucky enough to be on one of the teams that is doing some of the A/B testing and different stuff. And it's been really cool to see how not scary some of the stuff is. You can play it out into its scary elements, but I'm choosing a positive track this week. In fact, if you look at some of the backgrounds that we're playing with, if you happen to be checking out our YouTube show this week, like this Gold Rush thing here, the logo in the middle where it says Gold Rush is the image I pulled from the Discovery site. Everything behind it is all generated from AI. So you basically just make 3 selections, Keith. Like you select the empty spots of your screen. You make sure you tag, you take a little bit of the source material here, and it completely was able to use the
built out the mountains,
the tone mapping, the kind of vibe, a lot of the and you can also isolate this foreground here, and I could type in something if I wanted to. I could say, put this on a reflective lake, and it would create a lake with reflections, light diffraction of these characters. It's pretty cool what you can do. And obviously, if you want to touch it up, you got to still have the graphic designer skills.
For
now. But if you're just kind of trying to create a background for a podcast, pretty quick, pretty fast.
Pretty impressive. It's very impressive.
So there's some cool stuff happening, and Adobe and some of the other bigger companies are rolling it out in beta and allowing you to check it out without having to spend gajillions of dollars. But in some ways, I'm happy it is behind a paywall for most people, because the second it gets out to the masses, the super masses, I think it'd be interesting.
They're coming for our nether regions.
Yeah. So anyway, folks, that's Geekly this week. We're glad to be back. You can check out our other shows if you're interested in the nonsense we're doing. In fact, our patrons are watching us play the newest Star Trek game. It's called Star Trek Resurgence. It's a sort of a point-and-click adventure narrative thing.
It's fun, though.
Yeah, we had fun. It's kind of more immersive than I expected. Keith and I are now we're first chair on a new ship. There's all kind of nonsense happening, lots of toggling of switches and pulling and bleepings. We almost blew some people up.
You can see it at patreon.com/K&M.
Yeah, the first episode will air on YouTube, but then we're going to finish it up on the patrons because we want to say thanks to them for checking out us and helping us with the monies. You can also like and subscribe down below. We also watch Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Strange New Worlds every week, and we do that on the YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hey, listen, we're going to get going here. But I just want to say, until we talk to you next week, don't let anyone yuck your yum, Just keep on doing the things you find fun. And Keith, as we say every week, keep on geeking on.